You did everything right. You stopped guessing. You found out your swing speed. You went to a fitting, or at least watched enough videos to land on a flex that made sense for the numbers. Stiff. Maybe stiff with a little more tip. The launch monitor showed a decent window. Ball speed looked solid. You walked out convinced the problem was solved. Then you took the driver to the course. And something still felt wrong. Not snap hook wrong. Just wrong in a way that is hard to explain, because every time you try to describe it, it sounds like a swing problem. The head felt like it was lagging on some swings. On others, the face came through too fast. Off-center hits felt unstable in a way stiff shafts are not supposed to feel. Under pressure, you did not fully trust it. So you blamed the head, or the swing, or you bought another shaft, and the cycle started again. Here is what almost no one told you. The flex was probably not the whole problem. Flex tells you how much the shaft bends, but there is a second specification that controls an entirely different dimension of how a driver feels, one that never appears on a flex label, one most fitters never mention, and one that can make two stiff shafts feel like completely different clubs. That specification is torque. If you have ever walked off a fitting feeling like the numbers said one thing and the course said another, this is the conversation you should have had first. If this is the kind of content you have been looking for, Equipment Explained the way the industry never does, subscribe. This channel is built for exactly that. Torque is not how much the shaft bends. Torque is how much the shaft resists twisting. Every time you swing a driver, two things are happening at once. The shaft is bending, loading on the way down, releasing through impact. That is flex. But the shaft is also subjected to rotational forces. The club head is large, relatively light, and attached to the far end of a long lever. As you transition and release, that head wants to rotate. It wants to twist the shaft. The resistance the shaft offers to that twist is what torque measures. Expressed in degrees, a shaft rated at 2.5 twists less under load than one rated at 4.5. Lower number, more resistance. Higher number, more movement allowed. Your hands feel this. Not always in words, but the sensation of a head that feels planted versus one that feels loose. A face that arrives predictably versus one with its own agenda. A miss that stays controlled versus one where the shaft gave way. That is torque. That is the dimension flex does not explain. Think about the last time you tried two shafts with the same flex label and they felt nothing alike. One felt responsive, the other felt boardy. You assumed flex was inconsistent across brands. That is partially true. But torque is often the bigger reason two stiff shafts can feel like they belong in different sports. Manufacturers decide flex and torque independently. A shaft can be stiff in flex and high in torque, or stiff in flex and low in torque. Even a regular flex with low torque can feel tighter than some stiff shafts. The flex label covers one axis. Torque covers another. Neither predicts the other. Lower torque means the shaft resists twisting more aggressively. That resistance can feel like stability. The head stays where you put it. The face delivers consistently. Misses feel contained. For a golfer with a fast transition, aggressive tempo, or a tendency to flip the face, that resistance is exactly what they need. But that resistance can feel like rigidity if the swing is not generating enough force to match it. A player with smooth tempo or a gradual release may find a low torque shaft feels dead. Not stiff in the flex sense, dead in a different sense. Like the driver is not responding. Like the head is attached to a pole. High torque works the other way. More rotational movement means the head feels more present in the hands. For a golfer who needs to feel the club head to time the release, that is not looseness, that is feedback. For the wrong player, it absolutely is looseness. If you load the shaft hard and release fast, high torque can mean the face arrives at a different angle than intended. The head that felt responsive in slow swings becomes unpredictable when you actually try to hit something. If this is landing for you, hit like and subscribe, because what comes next is where most golfers finally understand why their fitting did not stick. Leave a comment. What does your driver feel like when you swing hard? That answer tells us more than your swing speed ever will. This is what golfers mean when they say a shaft feels too whippy or just never works for me. They are feeling the interaction between their swing and the shaft's rotational behavior. Flex gets blamed because it is the word everyone knows. Torque is often the variable doing the most damage. Two golfers with the same swing speed can test the same shaft and walk away with completely different reactions. Same flex, same weight, similar numbers. Different torque response, different tempo, transition, and release. The launch monitor shows averages. It does not show trust. There is a belief almost every golfer carries into a fitting. Low torque is better, more stable, more controlled. The kind of shaft serious players use. It is a reasonable assumption, and it leads to a very specific, very common mistake. Imagine a golfer with 93 miles per hour of swing speed. Smooth transition, gradual release. He has always fought a miss right, so when he reads that low torque shafts reduce face rotation and improve stability, it sounds like exactly what he needs. He buys a 2.3-degree torque shaft, stiff flex. The fitting numbers look acceptable. On the course, he leaks right more than before. He starts manipulating his hands through impact to close the face. Assumes it is a swing problem. Works with an instructor for 3 months. Nothing changes. The actual problem was simpler. The shaft resisted rotation so aggressively that his release, already measured and controlled, could not square the face without active intervention. The low torque shaft did not stabilize him. It overpowered him. The flex label never shows you this. Two golfers can share the same swing speed, flex recommendation, and miss pattern, and need completely different torque profiles. Because transition speed, tempo, release timing, and reliance on feel all shape what torque helps and what quietly fights them. Now flip the assumption, high torque is loose. High torque is loose. For beginners, high torque cannot hold up under real speed. Also not true. Also a simplification that costs real money. A golfer with 105 miles per hour of swing speed and an aggressive early release has played a low torque shaft for 2 seasons. He chose it because it seemed like the premium option. He has never fully trusted the driver. Misses go both ways, and he cannot explain why his dispersion is so wide when his iron striking is sharp. The problem is feedback. His release demands it, and a very low torque shaft is not giving him any. He cannot feel the head. He cannot time the release intuitively because the shaft feels the same from address to impact, rigid, disconnected. He switches to a shaft with slightly higher torque. Suddenly the head communicates. He can feel it load and release. Dispersion tightens, not because the shaft is more forgiving, but because he can finally read it. Low torque can give you control. It can also take away feel. High torque can give you feel. It can also take away control. The right torque is the one that gives you enough of both to actually trust the club, and that balance point is different for every player. It is rarely found by reading a spec sheet. Torque does not work alone. It interacts with tip stiffness, shaft weight, EI profile, and balance point. A shaft with low torque and a soft tip feels different from one with the same torque and a firmer tip. A heavier shaft with moderate torque can feel more controlled than a lighter shaft with lower torque, because weight changes how the head moves through the swing. The spec sheet number is one data point. The system is the product. So what does torque feel like when it is wrong for you? If the torque is too low, the symptoms are consistent. Off-center hits feel harsh. Misses feel dead rather than just offline. You may start fighting the face open at address, presetting closed, because you have learned, without quite knowing why, that the shaft will not rotate on its own. Smooth swings feel mechanical. The driver works when you catch it perfectly and punishes you when you do not. If the torque is too high, the symptoms look different. The driver feels inconsistent in a hard-to-predict way. Some shots go where you aimed. Others leak or close without clear reason. You cannot repeat the feeling of a good swing because the head responds to small variations in your transition that the shaft amplifies rather than absorbs. Under pressure, the miss pattern widens. The driver does not feel dangerous. It just never feels trustworthy. Both descriptions probably sound familiar. Almost every golfer who has struggled with a driver lives in one of those two zones, too much resistance or not enough, and has no language to explain it. A real fitting tests shafts with the same flex and similar weight but different torque profiles, observing not just where the ball goes, but how the miss feels, how the face arrives on off-center hits, whether you trust the club under a hard swing. The question that matters, does the head feel like it is with you, or does it have its own schedule? That answer tells a fitter more than ball speed alone. If you know someone stuck in this loop, share this with them. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. The next video goes deeper into what a real driver fitting actually looks like. Torque numbers exist on spec sheets, but they are almost never explained to the golfer holding two drivers that feel completely different and wondering which one is right. A real torque conversation takes longer than a launch monitor printout. Nuance is harder to sell than a slogan. Low spin, fast ball speed, maximum forgiveness. Those phrases move product. Torque requires context. The golfer who walks into a fitting and asks only about flex is not making a bad decision. He is making an incomplete one. Flex matters. Swing speed matters. Launch angle and spin rate matter. But if the conversation stops there, you are building a club around half of what determines how it feels in your hands. Torque is not a finishing touch. It is not an advanced spec for tour players or equipment nerds. It is a fundamental part of how the shaft behaves under real swing conditions, conditions that a launch monitor session with a few casual swings does not always replicate. The course does. The 15th tee with wind against you and trouble right does. The moment you try to add a little something extra on a par 5 and the ball goes somewhere unexpected does. The most expensive shaft in the room is not automatically the best shaft for your swing. The shaft with the lowest torque is not automatically the most stable. The shaft that performed best in a controlled environment is not automatically the one you will trust 6 months from now when the swing gets a little quick under pressure. These things are not the same decision, and treating them as if they are is how golfers end up spending real money on equipment that never quite fits. What you should be looking for, whether you are doing a proper fitting or evaluating a shaft you already own, is a combination of characteristics that lets you swing without negotiating. A shaft you have to manage is a shaft that is costing you something. Not always distance, not always accuracy, but confidence, commitment. The ability to fire at a flag and trust that the driver is going to participate in what you are trying to do rather than introduce its own variables. Flex tells you how the shaft bends. Torque tells you how it resists the twist that happens when your swing, your speed, and your release try to deliver the club face to the ball. When both of those dimensions match what your swing actually does, not what the label says, not what the average golfer at your swing speed needs, but what your specific tempo, transition, and release demand, the driver stops being something you swing and starts being something you trust. That is the difference between a club that looks right on paper and a club that actually works. And it starts with knowing which questions to ask.